Welcome to Tax Matters. I'm Arthur Ferdinand, your Fulton County Tax Commissioner. On today's show, Fulton County Tax Appraiser stops by with news about the new technology his office is using to review residential parcels. Plus, he explains why valuations could rise in Fulton County and how the tax appeals process has been streamlined. All of this on this edition of Tax Matters. Stay with us. Welcome back. Each year, every Fulton County property owner gets a property tax bill from my office, the Tax Commissioner's Office. That bill is based in part by the value of that said property. The Fulton County Board of Assessors determines the estimate of property, and that process is called the appraised value of the property. David Fitzgibbon is Fulton County's Chief Appraiser. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
You are the second part of the tax office. There's the Board of Assessors and the appraisers, and then there is the Tax Commissioner. The work I do is determined wholly by the work you do. Your job precedes mine. And you have been doing a lot of things to increase the efficiency of your office. And one of those things is to find the properties that are unreturned. Not everybody goes to the courthouse, clerk's office, and files the deed. And so those are the unreturned properties that you're talking about.
Right, those and building permits.
Building permits, that's right.
We normally get building permits from most of the municipalities and from the county. We had a period of time a number of years ago where that was not always working as well. So we not only review the building permits to see any new construction that's going on, but we should conduct a field visit to properties on a regular basis. What we have now, we've been able to secure some new software and some extra personnel to where we can conduct a desktop review that will help us pick up those properties that we have additions, such as pools or dens or decks or outbuildings that are not on the tax digest for whatever reason. They might not be there. And this product helps us to identify those properties where we can then go to the field and finalize that process to pick up property that is not on the tax digest for one reason or another.
I'm a little lost. How does this work? You have a piece of software. Is it tied to some aerial view of the properties?
Yes, our CAMA system, which is a computer-assisted mass appraisal system, has all of our data. For residential properties particularly, we have what we call characteristic data, which is the makeup of the property, how big it is, what quality construction might be there, what the exterior and interior finish is, number of baths, fixtures, and so forth. That information is then put into a number of different tables and modifiers in our system. And our market studies that we do every year changes those modifiers, those multiplier numbers, and that produces our value, which we then inspect, and we quality control that through statistical measures and on-site visits. Our product that we have in calculating the square footage of that property is dependent upon a sketch that we take in the field. It's been actually 23 years since we've been to every property in the county on the residential side. So there are a lot of things out there about the sketch that might not be correct. Okay. This new software will pull in our sketch data, we'll compare it to our most recent aerial photography, and then it will immediately show anything that's outside of our sketch data, like a different footprint, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And then we'll be able to use that software to draw that addition, to try to figure out what it is. And finally, we'll go to the field to take a picture of it, to get a GPS point of the property for our GIS system, and to finalize any data that we need to add that to the tax digest.
So that will give you a more accurate value, basically increasing the value of properties.
Absolutely.
So that
right. Now,
you don't have to raise the millage rate as you don't have to raise millage rates to get your revenue.
Right. There are two aspects to the digest values. Anything called inflationary growth, which is simply the prices in the market increasing, which is subject, as you're aware, to a tax millage rollback. calculation, and that just simply means that they have to consider that as inflationary growth. Anything that's unreported or not returned property, any new growth, any remodelings, anything of that sort is considered new growth, is not subject to the millage rollback calculation and can go on strictly as what it's worth. We feel like that there are tens of millions of dollars of property out there that has not been on the digest for one reason or another. And of course, it's our job under the law to make sure that all property is returned at its fair market value as of January 1st.
But over the last 3 years, you have been asking for resources to make those field visits. I guess you got it this year, so you're going to increase your presence in the field.
We are going to increase our presence in the field. We presented a two-phase project. One was to get, for lack of a better term, what we're calling the low-hanging fruit, which are things that we're aware from this new software that is absolutely not on the digest. And that will strictly be additions to the house, such as dens or carports or pools or outbuildings. During this phase one project, it's very efficient to use this software, and it's been approved by the International Association of Assessing Officers as a new standard for assessment jurisdictions to be able to do this from a desktop if you meet certain criteria like quality of photograph and reviews, and then follow up with a field visit that verifies that, as opposed to having to spend a lot of time going door to door. Phase two of that project is to actually go door to door to pick up the kitchen remodels, the bathrooms, any interior finishes, and that also is considered new growth, but that's something we cannot do from the desktop. We have to go to the field to do that. So I have received some resources to help us get out. We got new aerial photography with the oblique imagery, and also the ortho photography that we can look straight down on. And that works in conjunction with this new software for us to be able to pick up that stuff that's very apparent, not on the digest.
What is oblique?
Oblique is a 45 degree angle photography.
So you're going to see through windows or
when
something?
They fly, it won't see through windows.
Oh, okay.
But it will, as the plane flies, it's taking images straight down plus in 4 directions. So as it's passing over, it's taking photographs to the side as well as to the front and the rear. And then they put those together in a mosaic to where when we pull that photograph up that matches that parcel, we can look at it from all 4 sides as well as straight down. And that helps us in not only in our office, but it also helps police, fire, and others if they use that product, which can tell what's in the backyard, you know, if there's any problems that might affect any emergency responders. It's a very valuable product. We don't look in the windows. It's not live, so we're not picking up someone and what they're doing. It's strictly something that's flown to give us the image of the property that we can use for assessment and other purposes.
Now, you are also streamlining the appeals process. That is very important to our office because it hastens the time when we could send out bills.
Yes. We have done better every year in both numbers of appeals and percentage lost of appeals. We think that's primarily due to the fact that we recognize the importance of processing quickly. Also, when we finalize an appeal, as you're aware, there's 15% of taxes that aren't collected because we can only send a tax bill for 85% of that value.
Let's just make sure you understand. You're talking about the 15% that is taken off the top, set aside.
That's
for
correct.
appeal. Not that I can't collect everything.
Right. I'll make that absolutely clear. You collect everything, but we can't. There actually is provision in the law that until the appeal is satisfied, and that law
we
just
cannot bill 15%.
Right. You cannot bill for but 85% of a value, and there have been some changes where that will allow you at the choice of the taxpayer to bill that. But in the past, that 15% of unbilled taxes under the law represents quite a bit of revenue that the county could be using. So our mandate, internal mandate, was to do as much as we could to process appeals more quickly, to get a satisfactory result from those with an agreement with the taxpayer or through the Board of Equalization and Courts, so that we could then finalize that appeal and get it off the books. Since 2011, we have cut the number of appeals drastically each year, and we've lost less percentage of value at the appeals. One of the things that we're doing to make that quicker is to be able to communicate with the taxpayer. We settle about 95% of all appeals, no matter what they are, if we're able to communicate with the taxpayer through emails, phone, or some sort. And when we settle those quicker, we're all better off. So what we've done in the past 2 years was have an online mediation service. We were able this year to get that tied into our online appeals processing. So that if a taxpayer files an appeal online, they will get a confirmation number, which eliminates any of that problem we've had. We didn't get it, I mailed it, they didn't deliver it. And they will immediately have access to online mediation where they can get on they use their confirmation number, they can get online, they can send us appraisals, pictures, reports, comments, make an offer of settlement. We do that first thing every morning. Our appraisers will check that. They'll handle those appeals first. And we had success in the past, but there was a delay between the filing of the appeal and when we could use the mediation. Now we're able to do that right up front from the first, and it's been very, very successful, very cost effective, and we've had a lot of very positive feedback from the citizens who've taken part in that.
Now, you mentioned not being able to bill that 15%. I think you should take a look at House Bill 202. That 15%, we would not be able to charge any interest on that, although we have to pay interest on it.
Correct.
And I think that's going to be problematic because people might be able to rule the appeal every year to defer paying that 15%, making interest on it, but not getting penalized by the county on that side. So take a look at that. I think it's going to be harmful.
Yeah, we have seen a number of issues with that. You know, they had changed the law last year, and you had spent a lot of time, along with our office, in reprogramming to calculate when people wanted to pay the 100%.
That's correct.
15. And just about the time I believe your office was ready and our office was ready to do that, they introduced a bill with changes in it that eliminated interest. That was a major concern of ours, that the taxpayer would be paying interest if we delayed our appeals process, or that we would be trying to collect interest due to any kind of delay. So that's another incentive for us to work the appeals as quickly as we can and get a good result, not just settle because we have an appeal, but make sure we have a good value.
That's good. Let's take a little break. We'll have more with our chief appraiser when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Tax Matters. Our guest today is David Fitzgibbon, Fulton County Chief Appraiser. Now, David, you mentioned a phase 2 of the technology improvement that you're initiating in your office. What is phase 2?
Phase 2 is a door-to-door review. It's been actually a little over 23 years since the assessor's office has been door-to-door to verify our property characteristics, review the physical condition of the properties, and look for any additions or changes. During the past number of years, of course, with the market being so bad, and after the crash in 2008, we have things on both ends of the spectrum that really need a door-to-door visit to be able to fix. In areas where there was a lot of foreclosure, where some of those properties were vandalized, we feel like we still have some issues being overvalued in those areas. But in areas, in the more affluent areas, we are statistically anywhere from 18 to 20% undervalued. And a lot of that is due to market conditions, but also due to a lot of the areas where older houses have been remodeled, where maybe basements have been finished in the finish area instead of storage area, new bathrooms, kitchen remodels have happened, and sometimes a kitchen remodel can add as much as $100,000 to the value of a house.
Kitchen. Not my kitchen.
And not mine either, but those additions need to be picked up, and we can't discover that because it's inside, and we can't get inside the houses, and we don't really want to, but we do want to try to talk to someone at the door or be able to look at the house to make sure that all of our data is correct, that our physical depreciation is correct, and if there's any evidence of something that would show us that a remodel has taken place. We will leave what we call door hangers, which are just information that we ask for the taxpayer or the property owner to send back to verify our information. And of course the result is this, that we would have more uniform values, we'd have more accurate values, and if we get everything correct, then everybody's treated fairly. And with the addition that we could add to the digest, the millage rate could be reduced again.
That's correct. Now, what happens if a taxpayer did not respond to this thing you hang on the door?
We have two things. We are able to tell from the outside mostly what's inside. But when we can't actually see the bathroom or the kitchen on the older houses, we can't really tell if they've done a remodel. So that's going to be pretty important that we get that information. A lot of these may have been done without building permits, or the building permit may not have been forwarded to us for review. But generally speaking, particularly on older properties, we can tell if the outside has been updated. There's a good chance the inside has been updated as well. So at that point, we'll try to contact them. If they don't respond, we'll make our best estimate. Every year, we're required to mail a change of assessment notice to the property owner. And if we estimate that value based on what we think's inside, the property owner will have a chance to appeal that value. And naturally, at that point, can tell us if we're correct about what we think's inside. And
so
that
you can
process
get their
can fix
attention
it.
with that notice you send them.
We kind of get their attention. Of course, we don't try to estimate so high as to flush out these values. You know, we could go out and put a couple of $1 million on every house, and we'd probably hear from them. But we're trying to make the most accurate response we can. We're not doing this to punish anybody or try to generate revenue. But the law is very clear. We're supposed to have fair market value, and it takes resources to get out to the field. In the past several years where it's been real lean, it's been hard to get those resources, and it is a very labor-intensive type review that we have to do. But state law really requires us to visit all properties once every 3 years, and we just haven't been able to comply with that part of it. And we think if we get everything right, that most people will see a reduction in taxes even if the value goes up, because that will be spread out, and a millage rate reduction would occur that would reduce each individual property owner's taxes.
Very good. Now, with the rest of the time we have, let's talk about what taxpayers could expect in terms of the process for getting the appeals, or look at appealing the values, and then the timing of when those things are going to be sent out.
Right. We have a projected target date of mailing our annual notice of assessment of May 15th. We may be a little bit later than that with this desktop review project. If we're seeing a lot of results from it, we may want to push that back a couple of weeks. But the appeal period is 45 days from the date on that assessment notice. We like to get those out so that total 45-day is up prior to us being required to submit the digest to you, so that we know exactly how many appeals we have in-house at that point in time, so we can figure what the possible effect would be on that tax digest. But once the appeal is received, we mail those notices by first-class mail. Unfortunately, we're not responsible for checking every property owner to make sure that they receive them. But we do post all the notices online. We'll have a list of notices mailed. We'll have a list of those notices returned undelivered. And we'll be able to have a copy of each notice on our website with the property characteristics. So any owner can go click on their own property, search it on our website, see a copy of that notice, or they can look at our list of notices and return notices we have online. If they don't agree with the value, there's 45 days to appeal it. If we don't make a change.
Can you appeal online?
They can appeal online. We would certainly highly recommend that everyone appeal online. It gives us and the owner a secure, positive identification number that verifies their appeal was received. Sometimes in the mail, if they're not delivered, they might be overlooked or lost. And if the property owner misses the deadline of April 1st for filing a return, or misses the deadline of the 45 days for appealing that value, the courts will say you have no standing and we cannot hear that appeal. We may do a courtesy review of the value, and if there's information we find is incorrect, we can correct it. But as far as the legal appeal goes, if you missed that deadline, we can't do anything for that year to correct that value.
And so when the taxpayer gets a bill based on that value that did not appeal, he should not appeal to me to reduce taxes, because I can't do it either.
They should never appeal to you for any value-related issues on their assessment. They can only be appealed through the Board of Assessors, and through the Board of Assessors to the next step, which is Board of Equalization, and further to court. All those have to be filed with us, and we process those and send them on to those other appeal steps. But your office, as you and I are well aware, collects the taxes, bills the taxes. We set the values. If they come to us about a collection or tax issue, we're going to give them to you, and we expect that if they come to you, that you will give them to us. So it's very important they understand the difference in our offices. Anything related to our assessment notice or our value must come to us, and it must come to us on time for us to be able to consider it.
And you cannot appeal a tax bill.
You cannot appeal a tax bill.
Appeal that value, and you have 45 days from the notice.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay. Now, let's switch modes a little bit.
Okay.
There are a couple of House bills in the legislature right now where they're trying to, I'll say, hurt the county. House Bill 521 and House Bill 522. 521 imposes a $60,000 homestead exemption, which means that a house valued at $150,000 or less would pay no taxes.
That's correct.
And then there's an additional $30,000 homestead exemption for seniors over 70 who have lived in the homes for 10 years. Both those bills could have a major impact on the flow of revenue, both for the county and for the schools.
That's correct.
Now, from what you did, the hit on the county alone was about $38 million.
That's correct.
In taxes. Is the county doing anything to stop those bills?
We do have, I believe, a legislative committee that is working to show the ill-advised nature of those bills. When you take $38 million out of the tax digest or tax loss from that $38 million, that's a big chunk that has to be made up somewhere, or services have to be cut. We have had that bill a couple of years. It's apparently a Fulton County bill, which certainly we feel like is a little bit wrong to try to punish Fulton County when we have one of the largest homestead exemptions in the state already. Of course, the final result of that would be based on a number of things. How many properties qualified for homestead? On the elderly, how many of those folks actually qualified? We've looked at some things. The one with the elderly would certainly affect the school boards tremendously, and we really have no way of knowing how many of those would qualify because we don't track the age of all owners, only those that have a homestead exemption. We think they're disastrous bills on our part. The administration of those, the logistics of handling that, creates a lot more work for the staff, which takes away from the other important thing. But the financial loss to the county is just really tremendous.
And the school board is going to be
school boards
also,
especially, because it is a major source of funding. And we do have a large elderly population which would qualify for an increased homestead. We estimated, from the best information we had, that possibly another 50,000 or more properties would be affected by that if they increased it to a 70 age with no income restrictions and strictly on the school board.
Now, David, we have a new county manager. What kind of support are you going to ask him for going forward to make your job easier, to make the office run a little better?
Yeah. I'm going to ask the same thing I've been asking for a number of years, and that's that we adequately staff and adequately supply our office with the resources we need, which would be technical stuff like computer equipment, cameras, field tablets, and the number of people necessary to do the job. In my proposal, my two-phase proposal, we did receive some additional resources, made some of those positions part-time to help save some money until we're able to show that what we're doing is very cost-effective and produces income. I need about another 45 to 50 employees for a short term, meaning about 3 years, to do this field review. Once all that's done and all the records are corrected, we can back way off on staff and we can keep up with it. But there'll still be stragglers that occasionally somebody will do something we don't know about. Okay. They won't take a building permit out. We won't find out about it. So every few years we need to visit every property. But I would expect that we will need possibly 60 additional personnel to get this done for our review of 2016, 17, and 18. And after that, we can back way off. The cost is a little bit harsh sounding when we say that we're going to need $11 to $14 million over those 3 years. But we look at an extra $3 million a year, that will certainly be offset by the amount of revenue that we can get from these properties that don't have the stuff on the tax digest. And it's about equalization and uniformity. It's not about gouging the taxpayer or just trying to put value on the digest.
Well, that was a very nice perspective and a very nice discussion about the important work your office is doing, which would also help my office and in the end help both the county and the school board and the cities that we collect for.
And especially the citizens if we equalize and uniformly value
That's
property.
right. The millage rate should drop for everybody
Right.
concerned. Sure. We'll be right back. Stay with us. That's all the time we have today. If you would like to get in touch with my office, call our main line at 404-613-6100 or email us at taxmatters@fultoncountyga.gov. I'm Arthur Ferdinand. We'll see you next on Tax Matters.